as you guys would do these sabotage acts, didn't it worry you that, boy, if they ever caught you or traced it back to you, that you were gone? They probably would have been killed, wouldn't you?
Well, a possibility, but who cared? Life was so miserable you prayed to die every night anyhow.
Is that right?
And the next morning, I got a chapter in my book that I'm writing called Love, Hate, and Living One Day at a Time. You can live with love or you can live with hate, but you can't live without any feelings.
Yeah.
Because the guys that didn't live with any feelings at all, they just went over in the corner and died.
So let's talk, before we continue on with the story, let's talk a little bit about that psychology of it all, and how did you function day to day? What kept you going?
Hate.
Hate?
That's where it come from. You'd wake up in the morning, at night you'd pray to die. In the morning you'd wake up and I'll beat these SOBs one more day. So you live one day at a time.
And what about the love element? Did you ever think about family at home and I'm going to survive this and get home?
Well, yes, we did, but the hate was more prevalent.
I'll be done.
And then I got home. I wrote about this. I got home, and I was still hating. And a lot of the guys never did get over it.
Yeah.
But they're all gone now.
Yeah.
The hate eat them up.
Yeah.
And I learned to love. And it's so much more fun to love than it is to hate.
I'll bet. Yeah, oh, sure.
That you don't hate anybody. If you don't like what they do, but you still don't hate the people. Yeah. And it took me 20 years to do that, or 25 or 30. And that's another story in itself that I think. Yeah. What happened to cause me to write that part of it was when the doctors told me that I was amazing.
I'll be darned. At the VA hospital. We'll talk about that here towards the end of the tape.
And I said, would you like to have a chapter on my book? She said, yes, it might help me treat other patients.
So really then, you really didn't find peace till 20-some years later after the war?
And I learned in all this time. There's an experiment they conducted in Washington, D.C., not Washington, I mean Boston, at one of the major colleges or hospitals there. They put 3 pens of rats together. 3 pens. The first pen they fed. The next pen they fed and petted. The next pen they fed and hit them, cuffed them around. Who died first?
I'm assuming the ones that got hit?
No, the ones that didn't get any attention but just food.
Is that right?
They only done it once. But it was not enough statistical, to do it again, there wasn't enough statistical difference between the 2 pens that were fed and mistreated and petted, but the one that didn't get anything but food died. They done it because in New York they was having a lot of babies, orphan babies. The babies would be abandoned, and the babies were dying. So they wondered why this baby dies, and this one was treated, fed the same thing. Well, it was the ones they weren't getting enough attention, and they just shriveled up and died.
Wow.
And the same thing in prison camp, now that I've looked back on it. If you lose your desire to live, your desire to get mad, you lose your feeling, you die. And so I've seen you guys do it. See, just walk over in the corner and sit down and before we was working, see, as long as you're working, not so much. But if you wasn't working, you just finally just go over in the corner and say, to hell with it. Die.
Wow.
So I got a chapter in my book called Love, Hate, and Learning to Live One Day at a Time. And that's how I learned to live one day at a time. And how I learned to quit hating. In fact, one of my best friends is Japanese. And I don't hate anybody. I try not to hate anybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make it a hell of a hard time to not do it. But
at that period of time, that hate served you well. Actually, it got you through.
It got me through. But the guys that are still hating are dead.
Yeah.
Because they still drink. They drank or they got dead. See.
Yeah.
And I learned it, and so it's served me well. I'm 89 years old, and the people tell me I don't look or act like I'm that old.
No, you don't.
And I'm happier than heck. I got